Well, good afternoon, everyone. We are really excited to continue with panel discussions. I'll introduce the moderator for the next panel, the topic Tectonic for Economy, Developing and Deploying Leading Edge Technologies. Alex Wolf, the Dean of the UC Santa Cruz's Baskin School of Engineering, who will serve as moderator for the next session and will introduce our panelists.
Thank you, Mark. That was a spectacular opening panel, or second panel, I guess. Both panels have been great. But the one we just saw, I was just in awe listening to the conversation. And I think we have our work cut out for us to be as entertaining and as stimulating as our previous speakers. So I'm Alex Wolf, Dean of the Baskin School of Engineering. You heard from Chancellor Reeve a little bit about Baskin Engineering. I want to make sure that everybody understands this facility here in Santa Clara. It really is three things. It's really three facilities. One is it's a community meeting place in the heart of Silicon Valley, a place where the community can convene and have events like this, but also many other events that we hold and others hold here. Second, it's the home of the UC Santa Cruz Extension, which offers wonderful educational opportunities for students both in the valley, but also literally around the world. And third, it is the home of several of our Baskin Engineering faculty and PhD students who are doing leading edge research in certain areas, specific areas, and also offering professional master's degree programs. So this is a wonderful facility that represents an opportunity for UC Santa Cruz to show its value and its contributions to not only Silicon Valley, but also our contributions to the world. And I'm really pleased that you have an opportunity to spend some time here with us. Okay, so let me introduce the panel a little bit. Title is Tectonic for Economy, Developing and Deploying Leading Edge Technologies. So I think we're going to move down a level a bit. I mean, I think we heard some very big topics at very broad global economic levels and issues. Here we're going to be talking a little bit more concretely about issues around technology and how to enable technologies and growth of technologies, deployment of technologies in a global context, and in particular through cooperation between the U.S. and India. Of course, Tectonic is a very clever name for this session. Whoever named it, I congratulate you. It is both, it has meaning for me because actually my undergraduate degree was in geology. So tectonic certainly has some special meaning for me, but it's tectonic, and of course, tonic is meant to be kind of a cure for whatever ails. So maybe we can uncover some of those ailments in this conversation and try to figure out some solutions for those. So as I said, this is going to be more about technology, and I think what we heard in the previous talk was more economic, managerial. And the way I like to think about it is managers don't have anything to manage unless engineers have engineered something for them. So I think that we're going to provide some bedrock, if you get that reference, some bedrock material for the conversation. So let me introduce the panelists. To my right is Usha Theugrujan.
Tyagarajan.
There you go. You said it much better than I did. I am so sorry. So sorry. Usha is managing director of the Heppel Group of companies. Let's see. To her right is Renee Grimans. Oh boy, this is going to be a long, long day. Renee is Chief Financial Officer of Mighty Buildings. And to his right is Ed Green. Okay, I got that one right. Ed is a professor of biomolecular engineering in the Baskin School of Engineering. Ed is also an entrepreneur and is currently involved in 3 companies in various aspects of the bioengineering space. And then next we have, Sharad Singh. This is terrible. Sharad Singh, who is CEO of Trivium. And Trivium is one of the supporters of this event. And thank you very much to Trivium. And then we have our Mukundan. Okay. Mukundan is the managing director and CEO of Tata Chemicals Limited. Thank you. All right. So to kick the panel off, I took lots of notes, by the way, from the last panel, thinking about this. But one of the questions that I wanted to start with was, in understanding U.S. and India, and this was a comment that was made at the end, actually, of the session, that, you know, we're not all complete, that we complement each other in some ways, that there are some strengths and some weaknesses. And I think one of the things that we would like to do is understand where those complementary strengths and weaknesses might be. Complementary strengths and places that we can work together to really do superior things, and complementary strengths and weaknesses where we can help each other. So maybe I can start and ask, what is your feeling about where you see complementary strengths and weaknesses?
So I think you started with the right point, that the context is critical, right? So the context of India is that 80% of India is yet to be built. So if we build it better, then I think we certainly can get it right. We don't have to go through the cycle of learning others have done. So that's a big opportunity. So whatever we saw as a gap, it's an opportunity. So we are at about, let's say, 3.5 trillion. We probably be close to about 10 or 12 trillion in about 15, 20 years. And I think there's an opportunity to get everything right in terms of sustainable companies, in terms of more digitized operations. I think all these are great opportunities. So I think that's what we need to do, to learn the leading edge, what is there, and not go for second tier, third tier, but start right up front in terms of the leading edge. And also the second set of context is also about having 3 broad view of what I think is critical to get this going. And this is at a philosophical level, and I'll dive into specific. So the one specific example. So I do believe the 3 things are, we need idea porosity, which means ideas can move from across. We need talent fluidity, which means talent is fluid and it sort of makes its move. And lastly, I think we also need to be outcome agnostic. Some may fail, some may succeed. That doesn't mean the whole approach was wrong. So in India, for example, when you talk about transition fuel from coal out of, let us say, what is a transition fuel when you can go completely sustainable? Natural gas is not an option for us, because NG, we don't have natural gas there. US has got plenty of natural gas. So I think US is blessed in that way. For us, bioresources are very critical. And we are also constrained with a large population and constrained with small arable land, which effectively means we need to do something on the sea. So things like microalgae biofuel, I think, are very critical. So here, for example, I was just speaking to Parab on this view, and he was mentioning to me, have you been to Scripps Institute? I said, oh, no, I don't know. So he's told me that he's going to introduce us. We have been working with the Center for, let's say, Salt and Marine Research in terms of microalgae as a route to get ourselves some bit of transition fuel. So I think there are technologies which are there in both countries, which I think we need to explore more. And for that, I think we need, as I said, porosity of ideas to flow. And I need to have talent come here and this talent to go there to our operation to see what it is. And lastly, I think it may work, it may not work. I think having that attitude of saying fail fast, but then move forward I think is critical.
So what do you think the U.S. can, what is one thing that the U.S. could learn from India, where there's a strength in India, where there's a weakness in the U.S. at this point? Where do you see that?
So I wouldn't call it strength in India or weakness in US. I think we have an operation in Wyoming, so we got a very large operation there. And we got an operation in Kenya, operation in UK. I think India and US are almost similar. We get on with the job. We may have a process book, we put it on the side and say, how do we fix it and get on? I think that's an approach we have. Whereas if you go to UK, they would do step-by-step process approach, which may take time. So I think in terms of attitude, we are almost similar in the way we want to go through it. I think the issue for India, the weakness in India is that we don't think scale. I think in US, you think scale. So the companies, the operations are all mega operations. Second, I think there's a focus on standards. So I think getting standards right is critical. And third, I keep saying if India is to make that switch, we need to get our skills up. So the 3S, which is think scale, focus on skills, and then get your standards right.
Anyone like to add to that? Yes, Renee.
Yeah, I think in the previous discussion there was a lot of mention of the point that India is developing an economy on a different price level and a broad middle class which is at a different income level than the US. And I think there is a big learning opportunity for the US in this. We have a big discussion today in the US about affordability and about our ability to reach income groups with our products which are currently not reached because those products are not affordable anymore. Big topic in my industry, home building, is to build more affordable homes. And if you're able to build a product which is suitable for the Indian middle class, then that is definitely an affordable product in the US. So that for me is a big example for learning opportunity from India in the US.
Sorry. I think what you said a lot about the philosophy part stuck with me. We have operations here in India. I think what we do well in the United States is talk with bravado and confidence. And even if we don't know something, we kind of act like we do. And it gets a long ways. I've been telling my team in India for a while now that you gotta be more than just a doer because the machines will start doing your job, right? So you have to build relationships, build confidence, talk to people with building that relationship that machines can't do. And I think you hit it on the head a few times with what's needed. I would like, when you have the ideas flowing, I think that comes from trust. And I think the culture there has been, I was born here, but the culture there has been you have to step on someone to get ahead. And I think the culture, if there's something they could take from here in Silicon Valley, is we talk to each other about all of our ideas. And we find great people, we introduce each other, and we actually want the best for each other, and great companies come from it. I think that's something India can take from here, and what I think Americans or us in the United States can take from India is that just dedication to work. They need to work. They do their job. They appreciate having a job. I think a lot of people here just take it for granted.
I can't claim to be an expert in what the strengths are in India, but from my perspective as a university professor and as a person who has done a lot of hiring in biotech companies, one can get the impression that India must be a country that is full of young, ambitious geniuses, because those are the people that one meets here. And I'm sure that there, like any country, there are lots of folks who don't wind up in the U.S. and don't wind up following that path to their dreams. But the human capital has got to be mentioned as a strength. Just the enormous number of folks that are winding up here to pursue their dreams, and one can make an analogy. Look across the U.S. where there are tech industries, where there's growth, where there's this activity, and that it's no secret why that is in certain places and is not in other places, even in the U.S. Think about the U.S. as a country where this is developed and it happens. That's true to some extent, but it's not true everywhere in the U.S. This industry is in the Silicon Valley, and it's in the Boston area. It's where there are great universities training people, where there is investment in human capital. So, my very naive opinion from afar is that there is obviously enormous human capital, and the path to getting this next stage of development is investing in that. It always pays off, and there's a natural experiment all across the U.S. and across the world. Where there's success, there's investment in that human capital.
Just a quick point on this. I think it's no different in India. I think you said the right thing. I think if you look at various states in India, various parts of India, those which invested in education and nurturing talent are the ones who are sending the aspirationally. If you look at the count where they all come from, there will be high concentration of them from south and west. It's a large number of those people holding. And the reason is that the southern states have spent a lot more time, a lot more energy in building education institutions, which then sort of, so their birth rates are down, their female literacy is up, their education standards are higher. So literally it's two Indias today as we speak.
So the one area I think where US can probably copy India is in the area of digital payments. We have hit an 80 billion transaction in September. I don't need to carry my card. I just have to carry my phone, and I just can pay even 10 rupees through digital payments through a Google Pay or a Phone Pay. And that makes a lot of difference. That's one area I felt we can, copy shamelessly. Where Indians can copy from Americans, yes, what Sharad said, we can do a lot better job of selling ourselves better, showcasing ourselves better.
Well, following up on that, I'm a professor of computer science as well, and as being dean. And when I heard about the India stack, it sort of warmed my heart because, of course, that's the world that I've lived in my entire career. But the stack, it has an interesting characteristics because you could think about industries developing around the vertical of the stack, or you could think about industries as working at horizontals within the stack. So you mentioned digital payments. Are industries developing vertically with respect to that or horizontally?
It's developing across. It's, you go to any store in India, be it a retailer or any retailer, modern trade or a petty shop, you still have a QR code placed there. So you can shop anywhere you want with a digital payment. So it's across.
So, but how is the infrastructure being developed? And maybe not even just in that industry, but in other industries. So is there a tendency in India towards the verticals, or is that changing? I mean, I'm aware of some very large Indian companies, and they're the most famous in the world. But I suspect that there's a growing number of other companies which are not so vertically oriented, but starting to specialize in the horizontals. Is that true? Is that false? It's certainly true here that's a trend.
So I think you highlight a very important. The India stack is like an infrastructure. You can hook anything onto it. It's like and it's a free infrastructure created by government, paid for nobody, and I think that's the best part of it, right? So if we have to hit scale in India, the cost we need, if we don't have the digital highway, we will never hit it. And I think one of the key things there is, for example, access to health and medicine. Now, digital medicine, digital access is one of the key things which we will focus on and continue to focus on. We are not producing as many doctors as we need to sort of reach And I think if you add a layer of AI on top of that, if we can take care of bulk of the minor ailments through machine-led curatives and focus on wellness as an item, I think we would probably address the issue of health and wellness in broad way. And if you speak to let's say hospitals like Apollo Hospital, who built a complete vertical in let's say healthcare, they will tell you that they are able to, if they've got the best physician in one city, and they've got hospitals around India, they're able to get their access to that best physician to give treatment, cure, and address the issues in other places. Very simple example, what we can do, we have something called National Cancer Grid, which was built on that stack. And now, if anybody has cancer, the person has got access to best cancer therapeutic and doctors anywhere in India. And it is all digitally driven. And this National Cancer Grid is something which basically one of our companies built for Government of India, so that and it's run by the government today. So there are examples of that in healthcare, and you would almost see that vertically integrated across all sectors. It's an opportunity. Not all sectors have woken up to it, but I think we need to think the way you've been highlighting.
So you mentioned two things that I wanted to talk about. One was AI, which is, of course, unavoidable. I'll put that on the side for the moment. But you also mentioned the government and the role of the government in operating some of these kinds of services, let's say, which are, here the tendency is for these services to be run commercially. In India, is there a tendency or a tendency to, what is the balance between industrial run and government operated services?
I'm going to throw out, I've been dealing with some friends who are neurosurgeons from UC, right? And they're using Epic as their health record system. It's I don't know, some might be working from there, but it's a very old platform that doctors don't like to use, and it takes a lot of time and creates inefficiency. It's based out of Wisconsin. It's a family-owned business. Why can't we get a better software? They're embedded with the government. So I don't, at the same time, you're saying private companies or the government, sometimes it's the same. I think what you shared, what you built for the cancer initiative in India, we'd love to have that here. Why don't we have, we just don't have enough competition, I think, in this country. Even though it's privatized, it's all gobbled up by one major company who then lobbies and keeps control of it. So it's my thoughts, but I wish there was more competition.
Well, it's an interesting object lesson because, the whole intent is that it unify the records, right? And so if you try to conceive of it, operate it, develop it through anything other than a single entity, it becomes incredibly challenging, right? So, how do we, and it's a great object lesson because it begs the question, if we want to have cooperation between companies in India and companies in the US, how do we navigate that space so that they actually do work?
Yeah, I think you were sharing, what about the small companies that build on a platform, right? And I've talked to UCSF. I have clients. I work with primarily super early stage companies, like seed to Series C. And one of them, evidently AI, essentially is an AI platform. We'll get into all this AI, but it essentially helps doctors and with navigating what's going on, what the patient's records are, the history is, summarizing all that when they go in an appointment. And they cannot get into a UC system because Epic is there. I have another client, Elation Health, big EHR company, can only go after 6-person hospitals, six doctor hospitals. Can't go after a UC where they can make the most impact because there's no way for them to get in through with Epic blocking the door. So I think we have these incredible opportunities, but the doors are closed. I just don't know how to open them.
Sure.
I think this is an interesting part of the Indian development and many rapidly developing countries is that you have this huge opportunity to miss out on all the mistakes which were made here and in other countries for the last 50 years. Yeah, home building industry, another example, zero productivity growth for 100 years. Ever since we invented the chainsaw, not the chainsaw, but the saw and the drill, we stopped developing this industry. Zero. Last 50 years, declining productivity. Phones. Yeah, so lucky that you didn't put a dial phone on every single desk in the country, and could go straight to mobile phones. So, I think this is a huge opportunity for India, and it's a huge opportunity for the US if we don't shut down this country further to international trade, to benefit from making the leapfrog and getting rid of all the antiquated suppliers like Epic, which are blocking innovation.
Yeah. So I've heard about Epic a lot, and I just don't want to go there. Let me stay out of that and stick to what was just highlighted by Rene just now. And I think fundamentally, if one were to sort of look at company-to-company cooperation, I think the 2-3 key elements, it starts with, of course, trust. I think we just need to build. It's firstly, there's a long distance between two countries, and we work very differently. But we speak the same English language, but then we work very differently. There's also views sitting here that Indian legal system takes a long time. Of course, it takes a long time. But one of the things I keep telling my partners is, why do you want to think about ending up in courts? We should not ever even think of going there. There should be a relationship which is good enough to sort of move forward and amicably close. And I think we've done this in so many partnerships. When IBM came to India, it came along as a joint venture partner with Tata. One day they said they want to be on their own, and they are there independently on their own. So I think it's about finding good partners who have got the same value system, with whom you build trust and you build long-term relationship. I think that's the critical first piece. The second piece, of course, you got lawyers, and I think that's been perfected on art in this country, whereas and we struggle with it many times, because getting a document on contract signed is a huge problem in terms of, because obviously this is a very litigation prone place, and we are not used to it. So we need to get through that second piece. The third piece is fundamentally that we've had many partners come to India, and we would tell them, for example, when one of the major plastic supplier came to India, and then we were saying we were designing a dashboard for a vehicle, and when we told what is the cost we wanted to reach, they said this doesn't even cover our materials. But we said that's the cost we want to actually deliver on. And it's about reimagining what you want to do, re-engineering what you need to do. So if we can be flexible about the market need, and let me give a broad example what has happened out of this whole context. Suzuki came to India. Today it is 50% market share. Ford and GM have exited India. And the number 2 company is Hyundai. It is just that they are, and for Hyundai, India is an export hub. So it's not that opportunity was not there. It is just about, if you can get it right with those deep market issues, and if you can address them. And I think it's addressable. It's not that I do find, for example, every car maker here is extremely competitive, extremely has a right kind of quality and approach. It's just about reimagining and rethinking how you sort of address the different market.
We do a lot of work for US, be it in the healthcare, especially like medical transcription and all that, covered by NDAs. So it's just a matter of time before that trust gets built in other verticals.
It's probably obvious, but the biotech industry is very, very ripe, and I think folks see this and things are happening. But that's an industry where the creativity and knowledge generation and the making new markets and products don't necessarily require a huge capital investment like a fab center or automobile manufacturing or something like that. And that is happening, and it seems like ground zero for where collaboration could happen. It just takes creativity and knowledge. That's where all of the interesting things are happening. And I just also wanted to mention that my nephew works for Epic. I said sorry. It's okay. You'll be happy to hear this too. He just quit. Yeah, he moved to Madison and worked there for a few months, and he said that it was a terrible operation and he hated it. So we can be, yeah, and a very nice facility that they have there, evidently, but he didn't like the job.
So I wanted to talk about a sensitive topic, and it's not exactly related to contracts, but it is related to IP, and that is the issue of research security, and the tension that exists between, let's say, governments, which are, rightly or wrongly, wanting to protect the IP of the companies in their countries from potential adversaries, versus companies that want to, of course, to sell to global markets and go wherever the business will take them. And I'll throw in, universities, which are also organized around sharing, open education, and inclusivity, and the spread of knowledge. So what in the U.S., of course, research security has become an extremely hot topic, difficult topic. What is the perspective in India, and how are companies navigating issues of IP from a research security point of view as opposed to an IP protection point of view? Usha, do you have any?
So that explains the number of NDAs I had to sign before I traveled to US. India is still in nascent stage. I would say we've definitely are far ahead in the pharma industry and technology, but many others. But the BPO, KPO, we are far, far ahead in data security and cybersecurity in all those areas.
In terms of IP, I think you hit upon a very important topic, and this has been a point of friction for long with the pharma sector and between India and US. And I think it's a point which I think both countries have now begun to recognize. It's an important area to address and move beyond. And I think increasingly there's a realization if you don't protect patent and intellectual property, the value chain will never get built up. I think that realization is there. And if you'd asked me the same question 10 years ago, I think it would have been a bit of an issue. But I want to tell you, Indian companies are on the same side as American companies. Because when we build some intellectual property, we also want to protect it with the same vigor. So I keep telling my partners here that, listen, I think we want to support everything you need to do, because for us also it's a bit of a challenge if our IP just gets, someone walks in one day and then walks away with intellectual property and tries to copy what we do. We probably today, with the experience of what companies have, between what has happened in our neighbor whose name starts with C, whose name I won't take, I think we do a better job in terms of IP than what C has done. I think US has turned a blind eye to that country with C.
Oh.
Personally, not speaking for all Americans, but I do not have a blind eye to that. But my first company is called Dovetail Genomics, very successful company that assembles genomes and does other genome analysis. There was, after a few years online, and probably existed in reality in this place that starts with C, the C version of Dovetail, even with our trade names, everything that we did, it was just re-stood up there and was shocking. But that was a great lesson in kind of how the world works in that sector.
Yes.
Yeah, Canada's terrible.
I have a yes and on this. I think there's been remarkable progress in protecting IP also in China. There has been over the last 10 years. And I think the view that we can protect IP by closing our borders or by closing our factories is an illusion. What we should do and what we have to do is we have to make sure that IP is protected enough to pay back for the investment and for the innovation and to have the the entrepreneurial profits, which we need to foster and to encourage innovation. But having the illusion that we can shut down the entire country in order to avoid that our chips are being copied is not going to work. And that's the big difference. And that's, I think, where most countries in the world are now being aligned, including India and China and many others. And that's where we need to foster the international collaboration and the international openness. And I think that's a particularly important task for entrepreneurs and for business people, managers, to support this drive for international collaboration and openness, particularly in a time where governments, driven by populism, are trying to close those borders. We have to stand up and say, no, this is not going to work, because A, you're not helping your people, you're not helping the business, and B, you're making it worse, because other people will cut back on the IP protection which you have been able to build over the last 10 years.
Right. And I'll just harken back to in the beginning when you were listing three sort of enablers of collaboration. One of them was free flow of people, and if you know that is a major conduit of intellectual property, of course, is people, and we want to encourage that, right? Silicon Valley, as you pointed out, has benefited from that free flow of thought and people in particular. And everyone has risen. So it actually highlights two approaches to the whole research security framework, which is one is to lock down, shut down, and the other is to outrun, right? So I don't know, I'm curious to what extent, the countries, each country is going to, approach each country is going to take. I don't know. I mean, it depends, I think, on the government that happens to be in place. Now, we in the US happen to be in a situation where we're flip-flopping a bit between perspectives. I think India is showing a bit more stability right now in its government perspective. But, it's not something you can change every 4 years. It's a long-term decision. So just to touch on AI in the last few minutes, because I would be remiss. I mean, it's the first two initials of AIMA. I mean, perhaps AIMA will change the meaning of its acronym one day. AI is one of those disruptive technologies that is causing markets and growth in certain sectors to really be questioned or at least fundamentally shaken, right? So in the previous panel, there was discussion about the 6+% sustained growth rate. But that's it seems to me, if you have some sort of stable market situation that is always driving that. When something like machine learning comes in and generative AI techniques that are completely disrupting not only the technologies, but the workforce that's supporting those technologies, how do we maintain some sort of stability and in sustainability and growth? What is the perspective from Indian companies?
So I think firstly, we have to recognize this is on us. It's not going to go away. And I think it's a responsibility which is on the companies to sort of engage with the whole issue of AI and also upskill their employees so that they are better prepared when it does come. I think the last thing we can do is to abandon the employees and then switch and let this revolution take place, because that leads to a very different outcome. So that's one of the reasons I said about skills. Skills is one of the things in addition to standard and scale. And we have to constantly learn. And we are in a university, and I think this is a learning center. So I think this whole focus on consistent learning and building learning skills is very, very critical. In terms of how companies are approaching it, we have realized that how disorganized we are to benefit from AI. Firstly, AI cannot be benefiting us if our data is not in the right form. And we now have looked at, for example, we did an assessment of our data maturity. It was way down low, because it was in silos, it didn't exist in the same form. So we are actually fixing it in the next 6 months. It's a big lesson for us that this had to be fixed. then of course there are huge opportunities of efficiency and opportunities to address our customer needs much better. So really it's about rethinking the way the company is and looking at AI as more as an enabler and accelerator and productivity gain. What I can tell you is we implemented digital twin in one of our plants in the wet section. And I went back to the same workmen who were there and now they had a panel. Otherwise, they were going to a PLC out in the field. Now they had a panel. And the guy who said that, listen, why we didn't do this before? It is so much simpler and easier. So it is just that you need to upskill them, get them on board. So we were lucky our union didn't protest because one of the fear was we would reduce the number, but then we said, no, we're going to upskill everybody so that no one loses out in this process.
Also considering AI as an enabler. And yeah, it's like back to basics. Why didn't we think about it before? We incorporated AI in our sales process, in our sales CRM, and we are saying double the productivity that used to be. Same set of feet on street, but the outcome is almost double. So people have started realizing that it's here to stay, and they are also learning to adopt. And we are also in the process of upskilling every single person. The products that we put out there has an AI component to it because that's the only way the product is going to outlive another product that doesn't have an AI component to it. That's how we are incorporating it in our lives.
So the skills and the data are the key, right? And the context here for this conversation is collaboration between the U.S. and India. If the foundation is skills and data, that implies that the collaboration has to be at that level, right? So it's hard enough to think about how to get people trained here quickly enough. It is an opportunity, I suppose, for collaboration in education between the US and India, since there's going to be this massive need for that kind of training, and very quickly. It doesn't depend on location. But then in terms of deploying it, there's also going to be a massive need for data maturity and data cleaning and data unification and data standardization in order to make the tools useful. How long is that going to take? How hard is that going to be? And do you see prospects for that?
It's going to be a continuous journey. There's not going to be a timeline that this is the timeline that we need to complete it. COVID has helped us understand that we don't need classrooms anymore. So there are virtual sessions that are happening. There are, hybrid sessions that happen. Some come to class, and then I also have a academy that runs these courses. We've also started collaborating with colleges where, in the final year, we can incorporate what we need from them. So we save those 6 months post them coming into our organizations where they start all over again or from scratch. So where we can collaborate with the US is because we don't need a real classroom for people to come and sit and train. The virtual classrooms can help. Obviously, there is much more advanced systems out here, which in the earlier session, we were talking with the dean saying, can we have hybrid or virtual sessions where people can be trained much faster? So those are the things that we must keep trying. But I think it's a continuous journey. There's no set time that we can fix.
I think continuous journey is a great phrase to end this panel on. I think that is where we are, and I think we are going to hopefully enjoy this journey together. So thank you to the panelists.